Welcome back to the deep dive. We're really glad you're with us again, ready to get into the source material you've shared.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, think of us as just helping you sift through it, pulling out the key details, focusing only on what the text actually says.
Exactly. We're here to explore the information you've provided, no outside commentary, and this time, it's a big one. This is part 3.
The final part.
The final part of our look into the northeastern Sahel Front. We're focusing on what the source describes as, well, a really major turning point.
It really is. And look, if you somehow missed part 1 or part 2, we seriously recommend hitting pause.
Oh, definitely.
Go back and listen to those first. They provide, essential context. The build up, the earlier stages of the conflict, it all sets the scene for what we're discussing today.
You'll miss a lot of the significance otherwise, based on how the source lays it all out.
Right. So assuming you're all caught up, let's just quickly recap where we are
Yeah.
based only on this source material. We're in the period right after a pretty major enemy offensive. The Derg forces had been stomped.
Foiled, yeah. But according to the source, that failure didn't really stop them. It actually pushed them into this phase of intense preparation.
For something even bigger, what they eventually called their Red Star campaign.
Okay. So, our mission for this final part. We want to understand just how massive that enemy preparation was, according to the source. We need to look closely at the battles described right there at the northeastern Sahel Front. What happened?
And how the EPLF responded in that specific zone. Their actions, their tactics.
And then, the big one, unpacking what the source calls the demise of Wuqaw Iz. What was that? And how does the source claim it impacted the whole conflict?
That's the core of it. Okay, let's dive in. Section 1, according to the outline, is the enemy's grand preparation, the lead up to this Red Star campaign.
Right, and the source really emphasizes the time involved here.
It does. It explicitly states 2.5 years. Following their previous failed offensive, the fifth one, they spent 2.5 years just getting ready for this next invasion.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. It really suggests a huge commitment, doesn't it? Like, they believe this one had to be the final one.
The source frames it exactly like that.
Right.
Preparation for a final and winding military campaign. Although, interestingly, it also notes the EPLF leadership knew something big was coming.
Ah, okay. So the EPLF wasn't totally surprised by the fact something was planned. The source says they were well aware and well prepared for any eventuality.
Right. But let's stick with the enemy's prep first. The source mentions it wasn't just military. It says extensive political, economic, and diplomatic preparation.
Okay, extensive political, economic, and diplomatic.
Yeah.
Well, it's broad. The source doesn't list specifics, does it?
No, not really.
But what does that likely mean in this kind of context if you're launching a massive war campaign?
Well, you can speculate based on the implication. Politically, maybe shoring up support at home, tightening control, streamlining command. Economically, securing the funds, the fuel, the food. That's a massive logistical undertaking, right?
Yeah. Huge. Needs massive resources, maybe even outside help.
Could be. And diplomatically.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe trying to get neighbors on side, or at least neutral. Or managing how it looks internationally, trying to avoid condemnation.
So the source using that phrase suggests the Derg understood this wasn't just about soldiers and guns. It was about mobilizing the entire state.
Exactly. Setting the stage way beyond the battlefield. But then the source does get specific about the military side.
Okay. What does it say there?
It notes that right before the offensive, they made sure necessary reinforcement was made on its units in Eritrea. So bringing in fresh troops, bulking up the numbers already there,
More boots on the ground.
and equipment. Yep. The source says they equipped the army with new arms and provided more than enough ammunitions.
New arms. And more than enough ammo. That's key. Not just restocking, but upgrading and ensuring they could fight for a long time or maybe hit incredibly hard right at the start.
It suggests a massive resource commitment. They were serious. And then there's that psychological angle the source brings up.
Yeah, the renaming. It says the enemy renamed its military units Wuqaw, Meteor, Nadu, etc.
Fascinating detail, isn't it? And the source gives the reason. In a bid to boost the morale of the army.
Why do that? Why rename units?
Well, units get reputations.
Right.
Sometimes good, sometimes tied to past failures. A new name. It's a break. You can build a new identity, maybe inspire more confidence, project strength. Think about those names mentioned. Wuqaw.
Meaning like smash or crush.
Something like that. Meteor, annihilate, Nadu, maybe avalanche. They sound powerful, inevitable.
Like trying to mentally erase past defeats. For the soldiers, maybe for everyone, Psychological reset.
Seems like it. It shows morale was seen as really crucial for this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And the sheer scale,
Mm-hmm.
the numbers the source gives are just immense.
Let's get into those numbers. What's the total figure the source mentions for the Red Star campaign?
It says the Derg mobilized 120,000 well-trained and equipped soldiers. Just let that sink in. 120,000.
That's a massive army.
Huge. A significant chunk of their total military power, all focused on this one goal, defeating the EPLF. The source then breaks down how they were spread out.
Okay, so where did they all go, according to the source?
The biggest group, 60,000 troops, half the total force was assigned to march to retake Nakfa.
Nakfa, we talked about that in earlier parts, a key EPLF stronghold. Dedicating half their force there shows how vital they thought it was.
Absolutely. Then another 20,000 were stationed in Barca, out west, and 7,000 were held back at the Sahel Front as a reserve.
And for the front, we're focused on today, the northeastern Sahel Front.
The source says the rest, around 22,000, were ordered to attack there. So even on this single front, you've got a force of roughly 22,000 soldiers.
And why is it important for you, listening, to really grasp these numbers? 120,000 total, 22,000 just on this one front.
It gives you that sense of scale, doesn't it? This wasn't some small skirmish. It was a massive resource-intensive effort. It underlines the enemy's determination, the sheer force they thought was needed.
It really shows what the EPLF was up against. Understanding the scale makes the outcome, which the source describes later, even more significant.
Definitely. And the source also mentions the mindset of those troops at the northeastern Sahel Front.
Right. What does it say about them?
It says these 22,000 were well-equipped with all means of armory. Okay, so materially strong. But also, and this is crucial, their soldiers had a confidence that no force could come and displace them.
Wow. Not just confident they could hold their ground, but confident they could actually destroy the EPLF forces there.
That's the level of confidence described, stemming from the long preparation, the new gear, the numbers, maybe that renaming effort too.
Yeah.
They felt unstoppable.
Okay, so that really sets the stage. This huge, confident, well-armed force arrives at the northeastern Sahel Front as part of this massive campaign. And then what happens?
Well, according to the source, reality hit. Hard and fast. Despite all that preparation, the numbers, the confidence, the source says these enemy forces were met by the strong resistance of the EPLF combatants and their mission doomed before it began.
Doomed before it began. A powerful statement from the source. Sounds like it went wrong immediately.
It does. And it wasn't just stopped. The source emphasizes how quickly and completely they were defeated on this front. These 22,000 troops were routed out from the area within few days.
Routed within days. After 2.5 years of getting ready. That's astonishingly fast. Routed implies a total collapse, right? Not an orderly retreat.
Exactly. Chaos, disintegration. And the source points out this was to the surprise of the enemy leadership and its army commanders. They clearly did not see that coming.
Okay, let's pause there. This rapid rout. How does that square with the picture the source painted of meticulous preparation and overwhelming confidence?
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? All the focus on numbers, equipment, renaming, yet they collapse in days. It suggests, maybe, they drastically underestimated the EPLF's actual fighting ability on that terrain.
Or perhaps the EPLF's defensive strategy there is just incredibly effective.
That seems likely, based on the source. It implies the EPLF's resistance wasn't just passive, it was active. Strong enough to completely dismantle this major enemy push almost immediately. It suggests that the enemy's preparation, while extensive materially, might have had flaws in intelligence or tactical planning for this specific front.
And what does this quick rout tell us about the EPLF forces specifically on the northeastern Sahel Front, even before they launched their own attacks?
It tells us they were formidable. To repel and actually rout 22,000 well-equipped troops so quickly suggests really strong defensive positions, well-trained fighters, maybe clever use of the terrain, and effective local command. They weren't just waning, they were capable of inflicting a major defeat right from the start.
So the enemy's much-hyped Red Star campaign hits an immediate massive snag right here, a huge setback.
A spectacular failure on this front, according to the source. But the story doesn't end there. The EPLF, seeing this, decided not just to defend, they decided to push back.
Ah, okay. So they go on the offensive themselves.
Yes. The source says they launched their own surprise attack against the enemy forces still in the broader area of the northeastern Sahel Front. And it gives a date, February 22, 1984, just days after routing the initial enemy attack.
Right, pressing the advantage. How did that first EPLF attack go?
Well, this is interesting. The source states that The offensive failed to hit its target.
Oh, so their first attempt at a counterattack didn't succeed. Why not, does the source say?
It gives a specific reason, due to some problems in coordination.
Coordination problems. So not necessarily lack of will or overwhelming enemy strength this time, but internal operational issues, like different units not syncing up.
That's what the source suggests. Communication, timing. The complex dance of a large attack didn't quite work that first time.
Which shows how tough these operations are, even for a capable force.
True. But what's really revealing is how the EPLF reacted to this failure, according to the source. It says the failed offensive had to be thoroughly assessed and mistakes corrected and another attack planned.
No time wasted. Analyze, fix, plan again. That sounds very disciplined.
It does. They didn't just give up. They treated it like a lesson learned. And the source mentions the fighters involved. It says they could not swallow the defeat and were more than ever ready to retaliate.
So the morale was still high, maybe even higher, a determination to get it right next time.
Seems so. And the EPLF commanders acted fast. The source says they decided to launch another attack within 1 month of the failed attempt.
Within a month, after a failure. That's a quick turnaround for planning and executing another major offensive. Shows real agility.
It really does. Now, while the EPLF was doing this, assessing, correcting, replanning what about the enemy, the source says they were expecting it.
After being routed, then facing that first failed EPLF counterattack, they figured another one was coming.
Yeah, the source says the enemy had been dead sure that the EPLF would attack very soon and made sure that they are prepared for any eventuality.
So a tense situation, both sides preparing, the enemy waiting, the EPLF refining their plan.
Exactly. You can feel the anticipation. Now, thinking about the EPLF's response to failure, that quick assessment, identifying coordination issues, replanning so fast, what does that tell us about their operational style?
It suggests, well, a high degree of adaptability, doesn't it? And resilience. They didn't get bogged down by the setback. They identified the problem, internal coordination, and focused on fixing that.
It points to a learning organization, able to self-correct under pressure. And planning another attack within a month, knowing the enemy is ready, shows confidence and discipline.
Right. Speaks volumes. Okay, so the stage is set for the second EPLF offensive, exactly 1 month later. The enemy is expecting an attack, but maybe not this attack.
Precisely. The source says it began exactly after 1 month of the failed one. And it gives that specific time again at around 12:30 p.m.
Midday. Which, as you said, is unusual. The source explained why, right?
Yes. It notes this was at a time during which the enemy has not been expecting. So the surprise wasn't if, but when. Attacking at midday might catch routines, lower immediate alertness, even if they were generally braced. A tactical nuance.
Clever.
Yeah.
So how did this second midday attack unfold?
The source says the first enemy line was broken with a short period of time. Pretty quick.
And the second line, did they expect tougher resistance there?
They must have, because the source says the second line was easily penetrated, which led to the astonishment of the combatants that have been expecting some resistance.
Wow. The EPLF fighters themselves were astonished by how easy it was.
That's what the source says, astonishment. It suggests maybe the EPLF's fixes to their coordination worked brilliantly, or the timing surprise really threw the defenders off balance at that second line, causing it to crumble faster than anyone, even the attackers, anticipated.
So first line breached quickly, second line surprisingly easily. What was the ultimate goal of this particular offensive?
The source is specific. The plan's final objective was to destroy the command post of the enemy at a place called Awget.
Awget, the enemy command center for this whole front. Taking that out would be huge, wouldn't it? Disrupt their entire operation there?
Absolutely. Cut off the head, basically.
Yeah.
And the source notes that here, at Awget, unlike the second line, strong resistance had been expected. This was a nerve center. They'd fight hard for it.
Did they? How long did the fight for Awget last?
The source says the enemy resisted for about 5 hours. So yeah, a significant fight there. But after those 5 hours...
They couldn't hold it.
No.
Yeah.
The source says the enemy finally gave up, and the command post at Awget fell in the hands of the EPLF fighters.
Victory for the EPLF. They took the command post. After that initial failure, they regrouped, adjusted, attacked smartly, and achieved their main objective.
A successful, decisive operation is described in the source. And the consequences, the losses inflicted on the enemy, the source details them, and they are, well, staggering.
Okay, let's hear those numbers. What were the estimated enemy losses from this battle for Awget and the surrounding actions?
According to the source, first, personnel, 6,000 soldiers killed.
6,000. That's a huge number of casualties in one engagement.
Massive. Then equipment. 15 tanks. 7 armored vehicles. 6 anti-tank batteries. More than 20 heavy artillery pieces. More than 80 military vehicles.
So much heavy gear lost. Tanks, artillery, and crucial transport that cripples their ability to fight effectively on that front.
Definitely. Plus, the source adds a substantial amount of fuel and foodstuff was captured. Logistics hit hard, too. But then there's the figure for light arms.
What was that number?
The source says more than 35,000 light arms were captured by the EPLF.
35,000. Rifles and similar weapons captured in one battle.
That's the number given. It's almost hard to comprehend. What does capturing that many weapons on top of everything else actually mean for both sides here?
Well, for the enemy. Losing 6,000 soldiers is devastating. Losing all that heavy equipment is a massive blow to their combat power. But losing 35,000 rifles, that means potentially tens of thousands of their soldiers, even replacements, are now disarmed. It's crippling.
Right. It guts their infantry capability on that front. And for the EPLF?
It's an incredible windfall. Suddenly, they have weapons for potentially 35,000 more of their own fighters, captured from the enemy. In a long war, getting arms is always a challenge. This single victory, according to the source, basically rearmed a huge portion of their forces.
It's a double hit. Right. Severely weakening the enemy while simultaneously strengthening themselves enormously. A massive shift in material resources described as resulting from this one battle.
And this event, the fall of Awget and these huge losses, is what the source calls the turning point.
Yes. It's incredibly explicit about this. The source states, the demise of Wuqaw Iz has been the turning point of the military balance favoring the EPLF.
The demise of Wuqaw Iz. Wuqaw Iz, that was one of those newly renamed units, right? The smash or crush unit meant to boost morale.
That's the one. The unit that arrived confident and well-equipped at this front. And the source uses the word demise to describe what happened to it here.
What does demise imply here? Total annihilation.
It suggests that as a functioning, effective fighting force on this front, Wuqaw Iz basically ceased to exist, shattered, its command gone with Awget, soldiers killed or captured, equipment lost, fundamentally broken, unable to recover or continue fighting as a coherent unit there. And the source says this breakdown was the turning point.
How did this demise impact the bigger picture, according to the source? Enemy morale, for instance.
The source says it brought the moral and combat appetite of the enemy to zero. Just obliterated their will to fight, especially on that front after such a catastrophe.
Reduced to zero. That's a powerful description of psychological collapse.
It is. And the source then makes a huge claim about the strategic consequence. It says, this event brought the inevitability of the defeat of the enemy. It has been only a matter of time.
Wow. So the source presents this one battle, the fall of Awget and the breaking of Wuqaw Iz, as the moment the enemy's ultimate defeat became unavoidable, the point of no return.
That's how strongly it's framed. The critical pivot. And then it describes the effect on the EPLF.
What was the impact on them?
The source says the victory boosted the morale of the liberation fighters immensely. And it gave them the psychological confidence that no enemy forces could deter their advance for the final show to liberate the country.
So a mirror image. Utter demoralization and a sense of impending doom for the enemy, massive confidence boost, and a feeling of unstoppable momentum for the EPLF. This single battle, as presented by the source, just completely changed the game, psychologically and militarily.
That's the narrative. How a specific, well-executed tactical victory, building on learning from failure, inflicted such devastating losses materially and psychologically that it fundamentally shifted the entire strategic landscape of the conflict described in this source.
And the source connects this specific event directly back to that huge enemy operation we started with, the Red Star campaign.
Yes, it ties it all together. It reminds us that the enemy launched this Red Star campaign, which the EPLF called the Sixth Offensive, as their final show. Their big push.
And the overall result of that massive campaign.
The source states quite plainly that this offensive, like the other enemy offensives, miserably failed.
Miserably failed. Despite the 2.5 years, 120,000 troops, all the prep.
That's right.
Okay.
And the source attributes this failure in part to the qualities demonstrated by the EPLF, saying it testified the resilience, courage, and determination of the EPLF combatants.
So the failure proved the EPLF could withstand the enemy's absolute maximum effort.
Exactly. And the consequence of that overall campaign failure. The source says it opened the door for the EPLF to initiate its own offensive and step-by-step shorten the existence of the enemy on the Eritrean soil.
So, the failure of the Red Star campaign, A failure where the demise of Wuqaw Iz on the northeastern Sahel Front played a critical role, according to this source, marked the point where the EPLF could transition from mainly defending and counterattacking to launching a sustained, final, offensive push.
That's the arc the source presents. It shows how these specific events, the initial enemy rout, the EPLF's failed first attempt leading to adaptation, the successful second attack capturing Awget, the devastating losses, the demise of Wuqaw Iz, were crucial steps that crippled the enemy's major offensive and fundamentally shifted the momentum, allowing the EPLF to seize the initiative for good.
You really see the chain reaction in the source's telling. Massive preparation meets effective defense. Setback leads to rapid learning. Smart tactics achieve a vital objective. The resulting collapse changes everything, leading to the failure of the enemy's grand strategy and the start of the final phase for the EPLF.
It's a powerful narrative about how tactical success, resilience, and adaptation can snowball into strategic conflict-altering consequences.
And that really brings us to the end of this deep dive. The final part, focusing on the northeastern Sahel Front and the Wuqaw Iz turning point, based entirely on the source material you provided.
It's been quite a journey through this text. We went from the enemy's huge, confident buildup for the Red Star campaign,
through their surprisingly quick defeat on this specific front.
We looked at the EPLF's response, that initial failed counterattack, but the crucial assessment and correction that followed.
And then detailed that decisive second attack, the capture of Awget, and those truly staggering enemy losses the source described.
And critically, we explored how the source frames that moment, the demise of Wuqaw Iz, as the turning point. The event that shifted the military balance, crushed enemy morale, boosted the EPLF, and ultimately, according to the source, sealed the fate of the enemy's campaign and made their defeat inevitable.
It's a compelling account laid out in the source, showing preparation, resilience, adaptation, and the massive impact of one key victory.
Absolutely. Derived solely from the text you shared with us.
Thank you, truly, for bringing this material to us and joining us for this three-part exploration. It's been fascinating to unpack these events as they're described.
Our pleasure. It's always insightful to see how specific battles are presented as pivotal moments in a larger historical narrative.
So as we close out this deep dive, here's a final thought for you to take away, based only on what we've discussed from this source. The enemy, as described, had overwhelming advantages on paper, numbers, equipment, years to prepare. Yet the source attributes the turning point to factors like tactical timing, adaptability after failure, morale shifts, and sheer resilience. What does this narrative suggest to you about the interplay between tangible material strength and those perhaps less tangible factors like morale, strategy, adaptation in deciding the outcome of conflict, at least as presented in this specific account?
Something to chew on, definitely.
Indeed. Thank you again for joining us for this final part of our deep dive on the northeastern Sahel Front. We look forward to whatever sources you bring us next time.
Until then.